Cixin Liu's book, The Three-Body Problem, translated by Qin Liu, honestly has changed my life. There was the me before I read the book, and there is me after I read the book. Welcome to another liminal space video. You could actually see from the change that this book in itself was a liminal space for me because of the impact it had on the way I see the world. I'm an avid sci-fi reader of books like Dune and Ender's Game, both of which that are Hugo Award winners. And this book, The Three-Body Problem, definitely stands up right next to those predecessors. I think because of its ability to give hope against utter despair. The way that this book does this is through its translator into English, because that's the version that I read, its plot, and finally, its ability to supply spectacle. So let's go ahead and jump into the translator, Qin Liu. When I first picked up this book and read it, I was immediately enamored by the world I was plunged into. It takes place, the opening scene, in 1967 during the Cultural Revolution in China, which admittedly I don't know a whole lot about, but it's a very descriptive world of what's happening at that time. And in the book, there are these sessions called struggle sessions, where they have an offender of the state up on stage, and then part of the Revolutionary Army grilling them with questions. And then at the end, if the person is found to be an enemy of the state, they're basically stoned to death by the crowd. And in this revolutionary moment where they have a science professor up on stage and he fails the struggle session, the crowd inundates him with rocks. And watching is his daughter, who is the protagonist in the 1967 story on through the rest of the book. And she watches as people stone her father. And the way that it's described in the book when he dies is, and I'm paraphrasing here, his blood leaves like a red snake, and the drips of it off of the stage sound like someone walking away. And that imagery, that the blood dripping on the ground with her father walking away in death, was just absolutely profound to me. So this quote, or not quote, this section of the book that I'm talking about, how does this relate to Qin Liu? Well, in a New York Times interview, Qin Liu got the book and he's looking at it, and the book goes back and forth between the timelines between 1967 and present day, and the order did not make sense, the way that it was compiled, and he was a little bit nervous, and so but he's like, if it was reordered, this story would make a lot more sense. So he calls up publishers and talks with Cixin Liu. And as they're talking, Cixin Liu goes, "That's where I wanted to start it. That's exactly where I wanted to start it." And the reason that he couldn't, he goes on to explain, is because the Chinese publisher felt if they opened with that section of the story, the book would become too political and it wouldn't make it past the censors. And so this is why this book in particular shows humanity's ability to hope in the despair, because literally when it comes into the English, they're able to reorder the book in the order that the author wanted. Cixin Liu was so pleased with the translation that when he speaks with Chinese readers who also speak English, he recommends that they read the English version instead. And he said because normally in a translation, many things can be lost or something can be lost. But he argues in this particular case, three-body problem didn't lose anything in the translation. It gained something. And this collaboration, again, especially overcoming the idea of censorship, shows how the translation of the book itself is hope in that idea of despair, which I just find incredibly inspiring. So we talked about the translator. Now let's move to the plot. To understand plot, I'm going to bring up David Ball's theory that he talks about in his book Backwards and Forwards about how plot moves like dominoes. They stand up right next to each other, little dominoes, and they knock into each other, and each domino triggers the next. If there's a link that's broken between the dominoes, then the story doesn't move on. If we follow this image, then one of the two most important dominoes that we have in our chain is our first domino, which happens in 1967 when our protagonist, Yi, watches her father be stoned to death. And the very last image, where Yi is standing on top of a mountain looking at a beautiful sunset, where she describes this is the sunset of humanity, which she has brought on. She has brought on the destruction of humanity. This is the darkness that I'm talking about. This moment where this child watches her father be stoned to death by humanity, and the ending moment of her standing and looking at the sunset show us how she enacted her revenge on humanity by wiping everyone out because she invited Trisolarans to come to the planet. And the glory she feels in that moment is palpable, scary, beautiful, and wrong. That the Trisolarans consider humanity bugs, that they can be squished. Where's the hope in all of this? So our modern day heroes, which are Wang and Dashi. Dashi is probably one of the most lovable characters in this book and the next, and I'm honestly convinced that the reason characters can freeze themselves and live for a really long time is so that we can have Dashi in the second book, because the character is so incredibly charismatic. When we get to the spectacle section, you'll see that Dashi really does a standout. But in this moment, what Dashi does with that bug analogy is he piles everybody in his car. Again, I'm paraphrasing. And they run down to a local farm, and everybody's like, what are we doing here? Blah, blah, blah. I don't know what's going on. And when they get to that farm, Dashi opens the car doors, and everybody gets out. And he shows them that humanity has been trying to kill bugs for eons. And yet they still prevail. And so through this sort of disgusting relationship between humanity and bugs, Dashi, this lovable cop who's very working class, shows these upper class sort of scientists that the war's not over. We stand a chance because the bugs stand a chance. And that scene is the penultimate scene, meaning it's the one that happens just before Yi stands up on top and says, sunset on humanity. So we're left with these two conflicting images, that humanity may be bugs, but bugs can win, and the sunset on humanity, which puts us in a really great sense of conflict and move forward to propel us into the Dark Force, which is the next book. And so we see those two images of both despair, Yi on the mountain, and hope, bugs living out, even though humans are trying to stop them. And again, this is one of the transformative moments of this book, because it makes a person look at the sky in wonder and realize how small we are, bugs, and yet small things can still affect the world. It's really quite beautiful. Okay, so we've talked about Kinlu the translator, we've talked about plot, and now we're going to jump into the spectacle. In this book, the spectacle is all held up by the science, which is one of the reasons why I absolutely love this book, because I am an avid sci-fi reader. So I'm going to talk about 3 moments. The first moment is the video game 3-body that happens throughout the story. And the reason this aspect of science is so spectacular is because it describes physics in a way that makes the reader feel the science. Like, I can feel death in books, and I can cry, and I can feel fear, but the ability to feel physics in a book is absolutely spectacular, which is why I call this spectacle. And the way that the video game does this is there's this planet. I don't want to go too far into the plot. So anyway, in the video game, there's of 3-body, there are 3 suns that are rotating, which makes this world very, very chaotic for these people to live on, the Trisolarians. And because of this chaos, it's very difficult for them to find a sense of normalcy and a sense of rightness. So they're always trying to fix this 3-body problem with all of this chaos, with these suns surrounding their planet over and over and over. When all 3 of the suns line up, the gravity is so incredibly powerful that it pulls people into the air and into the 3 bodies up here. They become more powerful in gravity than Trisolaris that they're standing and living on. And when you read this, the characters discover that the 3 have lined up and they see their feet floating. And because they're Trisolarians, they've been through this, they know what's happening. But we are in Wang's shoes, the guy that's playing the video game, and he's watching it happen for the first time and feels it happen for the first time. And we as the reader go through that discovery of not flying, not really floating, but moving to the most powerful source of gravity. Going from the planet is the thing that's the strongest to the 3 suns that are all in alignment. I must now shift over there. It's not about flying like a jet. It's not some magic lifting up. It is physics pulling, and it just makes you feel it when it happens, which is just, again, absolutely spectacular. The second spectacular science moment that I want to share with you folks needs a little bit more dominoes and plot just to understand kind of what's going on. So remember our protagonist Yi, who wants revenge on the world, and she watched her father die stoned by humans. She's very angry, understandably, with the world. She goes about her life and she starts working at a satellite operated by the Chinese government. And when she's working at this satellite, she gets a message from outer space that basically says, "Don't pick up. We're a bunch of jerks." And she sees that and she's like, "We're a bunch of jerks. I'm totally answering this. I'm going to kill humanity." So she responds that she's here. So in doing so, to simplify this, we've got 2 factions. We've got the factions that want the Trisolarians to come and eat all of Earth's lunch. And we've got the faction that wants to save humanity and fight the Trisolarians. Well, the folks that want humanity to die have this very large ship that cannot be attacked because it's in international waters and all of the political mayhem, and there's a lot of money underneath behind it and all of this stuff. They have this very large aircraft carrier ship called Judgment Day, and it's kind of impenetrable without causing a major problem on Earth. And so they don't know what to do. And Dashi, who I talked about earlier, knows that Wang, the guy that's playing the video game, is a nanoscientist who can do things, really spectacular things with very tiny, tiny, tiny things. And again, this gets to the idea that there's hope against despair. This scientist can do the tiniest things can do the most amazing things with the tiniest things. And earlier in the book, earlier down our dominoes, he tells Dashi that he could cut a car with a very thin line of these nanoparticles. Well, Dashi, when they're in this meeting trying to figure out what they're going to do with these Trisolarian worshippers and lovers on this Judgment Day boat, says Wang here has something that he can do. He can change everything with these nanoparticles. And he goes on to describe, can't we just cut the ship when it goes through the Panama Canal? And everyone just kind of stops and realizes that, yeah, this is a possibility. So through his inspiration, Wang and everyone gets together and they build these very thin little nano wires that go all through the canal that they just have to basically pull a lever and they come up and they can't be seen. So they're down here in the water, boats can come and go, no problems, no issues. But when Judgment Day comes, they push the lever, the nano wires come up, and it's going to slice this giant aircraft carrier into bits. And so they're sitting there, and again, this is where you feel the science. When our protagonist Wang, who's this nanotechnician scientist, is sitting there, he's sweating, he's nervous. The general sitting next to him explains that he's seen countless world events, and they all pale in comparison to this moment. And Wang completely understands what he says because he's here. And he also realizes in this moment where he cusses out Dashi because he's going to annihilate everything and everyone on this boat. And it's packed with people. And you can feel the absolute despair of this character and hate that he has this technology and that he's using it in this way, and wishes that he could take everything back and not do this, but also knows that humanity is at stake in this moment. And he wishes that he could be anywhere but here, but he is here, and you can just feel the pressure of the moment on him. And here comes Judgment Day. It comes into the canal. They pull the lever. The nano wires come up, and again, I'm paraphrasing here. In this moment, we see a man just get cut in half and fall over, and we watch the entire ship push through, and as it comes through and its mass becomes heavier as it goes through, it separates like an entire shelf of plates and just completely mandolins all down the canal and sinks. And the destruction is absolute beauty, awe, destruction, despair, and hope, all wrapped up in that one moment. And you feel it when you read it. The third moment that I want to share with you folks is makes me smile because, again, it shows us how big the universe is and how small we are, and how small things can make change, how despair and hope work together. So we take a little side trip in our plot over to Trisolaris, where there's this dude working on Trisolaris, and he's like doing the grind. He can't get ahead. He's struggling and all of this stuff. And he knows of this oasis Earth out there that he just thinks is so wonderful, and the people don't have to worry about the three suns, and they always have like a constant wonderful thing, and it's a paradise where people are running around, paraphrasing, eating grapes and just loving life, and it's absolutely amazing. And it's his job to send out messages to find a new planet for them to live. And he knows that Earth is livable, but he doesn't want his jerks his society to go kill all of the little lambs, I'll call them, on earth. No, 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 no. He wants to do one good thing in his life. And so instead of saying, are you there? He says, do not answer this, do not answer this, do not answer this. And through saying that, he is hoping that he has saved this beautiful, angelic, conflict-free, because he doesn't really know Earth, world. And when they question him about it, the Trisolarians, like, why did you do this? And he says, because he wanted his life to matter in some way. And again, that a small action that one person or one Trisolarian can take can stand in the face of absolute despair is that hope that is at the heart of this book. All right, so we've looked at our translator, we've looked at plot, and we've looked at spectacle through science and how they all build hope in spite of despair. So before we leave, I just want to bring up one more really awesome idea that the author speaks about is in his little author thing at the end of the book. He talks about how when he was a little boy, he would look up at the sky with absolute wonder and joy and possibility, which is what he wants these books to feel like. And he also poses, if we were able to take all of that wonder and all of that hope and shine it at the humans next to us, the possibilities that we could do could be endless. So what I kind of want to leave us with today here at Liminal Spaces video is that this book will have you look at your own actions in the face of huge despairs, huge obstacles in a unique way, and give you a bigger vision of the world while still seeing how the small person you are can affect that big world. Thank you all so much. Of course, hit the subscribe button, give us a like, and hope you guys have a great day. Bye.